Today, we are joined by product creation expert. She is an expert in product development. You may have read about her in Forbes. You may have her products in your house right now. She's the creator of Creation Nation. Donteacia Seymore, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
It's my pleasure. You carry yourself very well. You got a great profile online, and I'm so
Yeah.
excited to help all the entrepreneurs out there get that idea out of their head and onto shelves. So I'm excited to
Yes.
have you here. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes. Me too.
So let me start here with kind of like a broad picture, broad concept. Everyone's got
Okay.
this idea in them that they want to get out there, they
Mhm.
want to launch. What is the common denominator of a successful invention? What do they all have in common?
So when it comes to inventions, like the inventions are the inventor because there's a two different things. There are successful inventors and there are successful inventions. Successful inventions are basically just good marketing. Honestly, if we're just being honest, you can sell anything if you have really good marketing, really good like messaging around what you're solving. If you're targeting that market that you're like trying to get into, I have this thing called focus messaging where you focus specifically on your target, like client, customer, and then you put all of your marketing around it. We've seen people sell, I mean, not even people, like the pet rock sells like $10 million a year. And it's just a rock in a box, right? But the marketing is, oh, you don't have to feed this thing, you don't have to water it. But if you want some companionship, there's this rock in a box. So if you can sell a pet rock, you can sell anything, right? So when it comes to successful inventions, honestly, if it solves a problem, like a real pain point where like when you get up every day and you're like, oh man, really wish there was something for this. Because we all say that. We all
Mhm.
say, dang, I really wish there was some way this could be better. I really wish there's someone this can be easier. I really wish someone would create this thing. Guess what? You're the someone, right?
Yep.
And that's usually a problem that millions of people are having. And if you can get that product developed and you can actually target that person and say, hey, I know exactly how you feel when this happens, then you're off to the races when it comes to a successful invention. Now, an successful inventor is just like every other entrepreneur, just someone who has like grit, resilience, perseverance, and execution, just like in any other industry. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that because when you watch inventions and these shows on television, it always looks like I have this idea, now it's on the shelves, but we're missing a lot of what happens between point A and point B. So
Yeah.
let's say
Yeah.
that you've got this problem and you're like, I've got a problem. There's not a great product on the market to solve it. What would be the first thing you would do? Would it be to start jotting down stuff in a journal? How would you recommend someone starts, Donteacia?
Yeah, so what I do is I actually would identify like different ways to solve the problem, right? Because sometimes we're like, I have this really good idea, and then we'll look into we'll see some stuff out there, some things not similar. What I will say though is look for the closest thing possible to that product
Mm.
and then read the reviews. If you want to know how to make a product better, if you want to know how to really solve a problem, figure out how people are already solving that problem and then find the gaps in that solution because they're always out there. There's always something really close, maybe like just 20% away from solving the problem that you want, but it's missing that thing. So I always like read the reviews because there's reviews for everything online, right? So read the reviews, go to like the 1 stars and the 2 stars. Those are my favorite things to read on Amazon and all those other websites, and see what people are saying. A lot of times it's a little tweak, a little something extra that's missing, something being detachable, something being spinnable, something being more lightweight, something coming apart when it shouldn't come apart. So I would look and see what's out there, figure out what they're doing wrong, and then think about your ideas. Like you're jotting down your ideas, right? Think about your ideas and how you can take those missing links and like perfect just one thing that's wrong about it. Like if you can just like really fix that one thing that makes everyone say, you know what? I'm so glad someone came and created a better solution for
Yeah.
this or this problem. You're like in the money.
Yeah, so I actually love that. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, but if you can
Yeah.
build a better mousetrap, you can
Yep.
really just accelerate where you start from because you already have a
Yeah.
starting point. Some people have already done some of the research. So, and this is another really important thing that's come up a few
Mhm.
times on the After Hours Entrepreneur, Donteacia, is go to the reviews, find the pain points, right? Because I would assume that in your experience, you can use those pain points, you can use those reviews to develop your messaging, right? To develop your
Yeah, for
marketing
sure.
strategy.
For sure. So what we tell our clients to do is to do, and this is probably something some people have heard of, some people haven't. If you haven't looked it up, look it up. A value proposition canvas. like really where you kind of talk about the problems that you're solving, the values, like your unique value that your solution is going to have. And then also, like, what are some of the objections that are going to keep people from wanting to switch from what they're currently using to your thing? And the best way to find that is with the reviews, to find out what people are saying. Oh man, I kind of want to. People are loyal. Most people are loyal to their products, right? Even when they suck. And so you want to like say, okay, this is going to be better, and here's the reasons why. I know you don't want to stop doing this the way you've been doing it. I know you don't want to have to learn anything new. So I'm going to make it really easy for you and say, this is better. Why? This is going to solve your problem. And if you can make something more efficient, like time efficient or process efficient, then it's even better. Because if you're saying, I can save you, 15% of your time with this new solution, then people are like, oh my God, yes. Right. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think that's really smart. And you said something that really kind of resonated with me. Does my product suck? Right? Because I think a lot of people, we get these blinders on. We're so in love with our product that we don't know when to take it out to the barn and shoot it,
Yeah.
to channel my inner Kevin O'Leary here. So part of the problem, I think, with being an inventor is have this sense of isolation. You don't want to share it with anyone because you're afraid that someone's gonna steal your idea. So, Donteacia, how can we actually get real constructive opinions on our idea without the fear of actually losing our idea or having it ripped off by someone?
I love this. So, what we talk about in Creation Nation is we talk about blind feedback. And basically, what you're doing is you're going to maybe even either a Facebook group or a LinkedIn group or people that you know that has that problem. So, say your product is a mommy product, right? Or like a nanny product or something for maids or for whoever. I would actually go into a group and say, hey guys, so I've been experiencing this problem. How are you solving it?
Mm,
And then figure out, like, listen to how they're solving it and
mm,
say, oh, I wonder if there was a way to make this do this without actually saying what your product does, right? Like, what do you guys think? What do you guys, and just getting feedback on how they're solving it, and then actually throwing just a little bit out there, like, so I wonder if we made this to where it's faster, or if there was some way to support the back, or if there was some way to like help with this thing. And people are like, oh my God, yes, I can't wait for
mm,
someone to invent that product. One of our clients, she's a speaker. And so a lot of women who are speakers, they have to put the microphones all over our bodies and in our backs and everything. Sometimes you don't even have to go anywhere, because if you're in the speakers group, especially with women, they're going to all talk about the same thing. They're going to
mm.
all say, I can't wait till someone makes a wireless remote for speaking so that their men aren't always feeling down my chest and on my butt and all kinds of stuff trying to mic me up. And so a lot of times you don't even have to ask about like solutions and whether or not you have a good idea. You just kind of listen to people complaining about the
Mm.
current way that it's done. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean that's the entrepreneurial mindset right there. It's
Yeah.
people are complaining, they've got a problem. How can we solve it? Let's be solutions oriented. I think that's huge. So
Yeah.
let's say we've gotten to this first step. We've started doing our product research. We know there's a problem. We think that we might have a solution. What's the next step to actually realizing that idea? Do we start going online? Do we start going to China to look for manufacturers and moldings? Like, what do we do? What's the next step?
Yeah, no, don't go to China and look for moldings manufacturers unless you want to be tied up for 2 years trying to figure it out. Um, so this is a very simple solution, is you want to actually put it on paper. I
Mm,
think people just skip this part. They're like, I have this idea, I'm going to go straight to a manufacturer. And they have no clue like how to explain the idea to a manufacturer. And manufacturers are not in the business of prototyping, which is something that most people don't know. They like for you to come already with a technical pack, which basically means all the specifications to mass produce your product. And so the first thing you have to do is sketch that thing out. Sometimes you can sketch it out on a piece of paper so it can make sense and get that out of your head onto paper. And then you can also hire a graphic designer to do some concept design work, right? Because a lot of times what's in your head and what's on paper, like when you start to see it, it'll evolve before you even get to
yeah.
a manufacturer. You'll realize that this piece doesn't really work there, or this doesn't make sense here, right? And so then you'll make some changes on paper digitally first before you ever get to a manufacturer. But before you even get to a manufacturer, you want to get an engineer to say, okay, now we have this beautiful picture that you have. Let's figure out how to make this thing work, and then have a prototyping company prototype it. So you, before you spend, $10,000, $20,000 trying to manufacture a product, you want to spend about, 1 to 2 grand up front getting the baseline of the prototyping done first.
Okay, love that. And I just want to remind all the listeners and viewers out there, Donteacia Seymore, she's laying it all out. She's going to give you all the tips, tools, and tactics to launch your product. You can join the Creation Nation. I'll have a link below, or you can go to donteaciaseymore.com. Cool. So you want to find an engineer. You got to get a nice prototype. You got to work out some of the kinks. Maybe hire someone that's proficient in graphic design. Again, I want to come back to one of the biggest fears that I might have as an inventor is they're going to rip off my idea. They're going to steal it. Do you need to start the patent process? What do you need, legal team behind you? How can we actually protect our product when we start putting it out there? What can we do efficiently?
All right, so I'm going to bust a myth first.
Okay.
No one's going to steal your idea until you've made money off of it. Let's just start there. People don't steal ideas. Ideas are like a dime a dozen. Like, people steal really good products. They copy things that are making money online. If you tell someone your idea, most people aren't even working on their own ideas, right? Like, they have all these fears and all these reservations and hesitations about doing the things that they want to do in their life that bug them. They are not about to spend time, energy, and money on your idea unless you've already proven it successful, right? So people don't typically steal ideas. They still developed concepts that are in the marketplace already making money. That's when they'll rip you off. When it comes to engineers, it's basic stuff. It's a non-disclosure agreement. You make sure you want to have them sign it once you kind of get into the development side of things. A lot of places won't actually do NDAs until you've decided to work with them. So you kind of have to keep some stuff back in those conversations and give them an overall general picture of what you're trying to develop. What we do have all of our inventors do, though, we have them all go through the patent search process because I believe in protecting intellectual property. And so I want to make sure they're not going to spend time and money building something that already is protected. Right? So we go through the patent search process. And then after that comes back and we get the designs done, we go through the provisional patent process. So even if your product is non-patentable, and there's all kinds of reasons why a product wouldn't be patentable, you still should file a provisional patent because it's good for a year. It lets you develop your product. It lets you test the market and see what's out there. And even if you're not able to get like a 5, 10, 15, 20-year patent, you're protected during the building phase just in case your product is patentable.
Okay, super smart. And I think a nice reality check for everyone out there. Your idea, nobody wants it. They want the finished product.
Nope.
That's really smart.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I like it a lot because I think we can very easily get wrapped up in this perfection paralysis, and you're afraid to take that next step because what's going to happen next. But sometimes you just gotta to kind of go through it, and of course, join the Creation Nation with Donteacia Seymore so you can avoid the potholes along the way. So, potholes, mistakes. You've worked with a lot of different inventors on many products. What is a common mistake that comes up throughout this process, especially at this point, let's say, when we've got an idea, we've got our provisional patent? What happens next? What's like the next big mistake that someone might make?
I think people tend to focus on like the branding of the products before the product is even there.
Mm,
They want to trademark stuff. They want to get logos and designs and design websites. And the thing about products, and this is going to sound like really like kooky, is they have like their own voice, right? They speak to you when they're developed. So you may think that a product works one way on paper or in your head, and then you get that prototype and it works a completely different way. It may be heavier than you thought it would be. It may be lighter than you thought it would be. It may be a little bit harder to fold or clip it. And so your messaging and everything has to come after you develop the product. So a big mistake I see people make is they go out and they'll spend like $1,000 on trademarks and
yeah.
logos and websites. And we've had people do that and then change the name of their products. Right. And so it's like you spend all that money doing that, and then you change the name of your product because when you got your products back, you realize there was a better name for it based on how the products work. Another thing we see is we see a lot of people getting these non-provisional patents, these long-term 10, 15, 20-year patents
Mm,
before they even started working on their product. And then what happens is they spend $10,000 on an attorney to patent this thing, and then it doesn't work,
mm,
right? Or they
mm.
have to completely change it, and so then they have to file another patent to cover the new design because the old design is no longer relevant, right? It doesn't work, and so they end up double dipping in this whole like patent process. And sometimes the second patent is denied against their first one as for obviousness, so they cancel themselves out in the process, right? So there's all these things that can happen. So the one thing I tell people is to not get a full provision or non-provisional long-term patent until you have a physical prototype
Mm.
that you beta tested, you've iterated, you've made sure that works. Because I mean, I hear people crying all the time, like I spent $10,000, $15,000 on this on the protecting this thing, and I don't have an idea, and then they get the idea and it doesn't work the way they wanted it to work, and they have to completely scrap it and do something different.
Oh, that's brutal. I can just feel my stomach just
Yeah.
shrink just thinking about that. I mean, and I think this makes a lot of sense with any business. I think a lot of people, they try to maybe go too far too fast, right? You got to
Yeah.
crawl, walk, run, because the problem is you've mentioned here is time and money. You know,
Yeah.
you end up wasting thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars on a product that maybe needs a huge shift, right?
Hmm.
So I'm kind of curious if I'm saying, hey, I want to bring this product to market.
Hmm.
Let's say like a simple small household item, right? Nothing
Yeah.
too complex or fancy. What's the approximate amount of budget that I should have or be thinking about to get it to market? Or should I not even think about that? Should I not even think about how much it's actually going to cost? Should I have an idea? What would you be your thoughts as far as
Yeah. So
funding?
money is a real thing. It's, especially in when the economy goes up and down, like people have to really think about money, right? So I'm not going to be like, no, just go all in with whatever you have, throw everything at the product. So money is a real thing. So it's important to have a budget, just like with anything else. You want to make sure you have a budget that you're comfortable with, because not all products are successful. Your first one may bomb. Your second one may be your $1 million idea. Your first one could be your $1 million idea, but it may be the fourth one, right? And so you want to make sure that you have a budget that you're comfortable with. Like you have to be comfortable losing the money.
Yeah.
Like you have to be comfortable knowing that you gave it your all for this product and it just didn't work out because for whatever reason the market fit didn't work or whatever, it didn't work. So for a basic, simple like kitchen tool or accessory, you're looking at, and I'm going to give you some real numbers here, just based on my experience over the thousands of products that we've helped develop. So you're looking at about $200 to $300 for your patent search. You're looking at about maybe $300 to $500 for a concept design. And this is if you're going straight to engineers and designers, if you're not going to like a product development firm that's going to charge you $20,000 for a prototype. So
Mm.
this is straight to the contractors that can do the stuff for you. You're probably looking at another $400 to $600 for engineering, which tells you the material type. They'll do your 3D CAD modeling and the design specifications, which is what you'll take to the manufacturer eventually. Probably for another $300 to $500 for a 3D printed prototype, especially if it's a plastic tool, because that can be 3D printed. If it's fabric based or textile, it's actually, this stuff is also, it's actually cheaper because it's just fabric. And then once you have that, you beta test. So you're looking at about anywhere from $1,500 to $2,000 to get through the whole process. But what I tell my clients, and like what I help people to understand who are just like, oh my God, I don't have all the money, I tell them to break it down into small, affordable steps.
Yeah.
So you see how I just told you how each individual
Yeah.
step is? And when you do that, then it's only 250, right? And then it's
Yeah.
only 300, and it's only 500. And that way you can kind of break it down over the period of 3 to 6 months. So it's not so overwhelming as you're working with each person in the product design cycle.
Yeah, and what I really like about what you do, Donteacia, with your Creation Nation is you're kind of helping guide people through all these steps, because there's
Yeah.
so many steps. Like when I start thinking about all these different steps in the process, from conception to actually being
Manufacturing.
in
Yeah.
the on shelves, like
Yeah.
there's a million things that go wrong. And just the most simple, like you had mentioned
Yeah.
before, pulling a full patent or doing all your logo and website design before you've even gone through the basic engineering or design. So
Yeah.
really smart there. So and honestly, $2,000 to $3,000 to get through these initial phases to see if it's going to work actually seems pretty reasonable. Like I don't want to.
Yeah.
I mean, look, thousands of dollars. That's money, and that's
It's very reasonable. They
very
always
reasonable.
used 20 to 30,000. Like before I came along and gave away all the secrets in the industry, so I'm not loved by some of my larger friends out there. Before I gave away all the secrets, like even for me, my product cost me $300 to prototype, maybe another 200 to design because it was textile. A product development firm wanted to charge me $12,000,
Oh
and all
my.
I was making was a fitness glove. and they wanted to charge me $12,000, $4,000 a month over 3 months to do all of this stuff that I was able to get done for less than $1,000, right? And so they're not happy with me because I am sharing all the secrets on how to make this happen, but I'm doing that because I was ripped off along the way. And I hear all the stories of people crying because they spent their life savings.
Mm,
I think the thing that's missed is that these are people's like hopes and dreams,
mm,
right? Like this is a thing that lives inside of them and it's breathing inside of them. And it already takes a lot to pull that out of you and to take a step of faith and say, I'm going to develop and build this thing. And then to have someone take advantage of you, it's heart wrenching
mm.
to know that you spent like $10,000 or $20,000 and you walked away with basically nothing, but like a promise of something to come in the future, maybe, possibly, potentially. And so, because I know what that feels like, and because I've had literally hundreds of people crying on the phone with me when I used to take phone calls, which I don't anymore. But when I used to take phone calls, like every call was someone crying on the phone about the pain they had gone through trying to develop their products and people using them in this process. And so my hope is with Creation Nation that we're able to kind of change the narrative of the Invention community and make this easier and give back people their intellectual property, give them back control of their dreams. And so like that's my goal with what we're doing.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons I
I
love
gave
the
you a lot.
internet. No, I mean that's there. Listen, if you have a dream, someone is going to try to prey on that dream. They're going to try to take advantage of it. They're going to manipulate that vision and make you think that it's something that it maybe necessarily isn't. So super powerful that you are with the right community, the right people. You have the right resources to help, and that's one of the reasons I love the internet. It's because the cream rises to the crop. The people that
Yeah.
solve problems, like Donteacia, like you're doing. That I mean that's how you make it. That's how you build these 7-figure businesses, because you're solving problems that everybody has, or a lot of people have. I'm curious. I want to talk a little bit more about money and crowdfunding, because I think that's one of the biggest
Yeah.
challenges people have. There's obviously a lot of different ways to raise money.
Mhm.
If someone's not exactly sure, would you recommend starting on Kickstarter? Would you recommend trying to apply to get on Shark Tank to get a loan from Mark Cuban? How do we go about getting money?
What I love about this is I did both of those. So I love it because I have experience in both of those roads. And I actually did get accepted to Shark Tank. I went through the whole process, but we pulled out, right? So here's the thing. I recommend you doing what makes the most sense for where you are in your product development life cycle. If you already have a developed product and you're post revenue, and you want to get in front of a lot of eyes, then applying to a Shark Tank and having a really, really, really solid pitch is the way to go. But if you just have an idea and you're pre revenue, then you definitely want to crowdfund. Crowdfunding is really good because it also serves as a virtual launch, right?
Mm,
Because you have these people, you have them investing in your idea, and then once they get it, they're all getting it at once. And so there's a really great way to turn this into like a marketing phenom. Because if you have like 500 people crowdfund your product and then they're all getting it at the same time, you can actually like set this up to where those 500 people are all talking about your product at the same time, sharing it, turn it into a virtual party, and then you actually can 10x what you've already sold with just that free advertisement from people who believed in you. And these people believed in you and invested in you. So they want to shout your praises to the rooftop when they get your product. They're going to be posting on Instagram. They're going to be posting on Facebook. That was my experience. They want to be really excited, like for you to be successful. And so you want to, like take that and capitalize on that momentum and use that to continue to launch the product forward. I am definitely pro Kickstarter because I funded my product on Kickstarter. And so I'm pro Kickstarter, but for those who are looking to crowdfund, there is a way to do it. Don't do it on GoFundMe. Like, let's just start there. Don't do it on GoFundMe, but you have to start telling the story at least 3 to 4 months out before you start asking for money. You have to get people engaged and
hmm.
invested in what you were doing. So what I did was when I filed my provisional patent and I got the letter, I took a picture and I was like, I filed a patent for an idea. People were like, holy shit, like what, this is exciting. And so each step of the way, I'm like, oh, I found the great designer. Oh my God, like the designs are wonderful. Like here's something for the name. And I got them involved in the process. And then when I got my prototype, I went live and worked out in my prototype, right? And they were just like, I want one, I want one. And so when it was time for me to physically launch my Kickstarter campaign, we already had $3,000 like pledged in the bank. So we were able to raise that $15,000 really quickly because we already had so much bankable cash.
Love that. Love that. Creating the
Yeah.
buzz, creating the excitement,
Yeah.
creating curiosity. Like and this goes back to the very beginning of our conversation. It's all about that marketing. So what time do you think is the right time to start your Kickstarter? Is it right when you start at the very early stages? Is like, what's the right time to actually start that Kickstarter?
Yeah, so inventors like to work in like a silo, like quietly, and then like one day pop up and say, I got this product that I've been working on for the last 2 years. And people are like, what? Huh? What? So it's actually good to start generating the conversation when you start working on the product. You don't actually have to tell people what it is, right? Or you can be like some of our inventors who went live every Sunday night talking about the process. Like literally, like here's what I experienced with my engineer this week. It was a nightmare, or it was amazing, and we got through this part. We had someone do that, and when they finally, and they were getting like 1,000 shares on their live streams, and by the time they did launch their Kickstarter campaign, they funded their Kickstarter campaign in no time. Or when they did have their order come in, they were able to pre-sell the product before and do a pre-sale versus a Kickstarter to cover the manufacturing costs. So you want to start telling the story as soon as possible, and launch the Kickstarter campaign once you know how much it's going to cost to build your product. Because a lot of people just throw numbers out there. They're like, I need $20,000 when they only need seven,
Mm,
right? Depending on like the manufacturer and the type of product. So like for mine, I actually only needed about $6,000 to develop the product, but we did a Kickstarter campaign for 14,000 because there were some other things that we wanted to do in terms of packaging and other additions we wanted to add to it. But you have to know the numbers
yeah.
before you actually just put up a number. Because if you put up a number that's too big and it doesn't make sense, then you have a really hard like mountain to climb to get that thing to fund.
Yeah, and I think people are more willing to put money in if they know exactly where their money is going. If you just throw out an
Yeah.
arbitrary number, you're like, we're gonna do this, 25
Yeah.
grand. That's all. But being specific. And I also love the idea of documenting. Document your journey. I think that's something
Yeah.
that every entrepreneur, inventor, business owner should be doing. You gotta start documenting your journey. That
Yes.
people really relate to that. People have a hard time relating to multi-billionaires, but they can relate to you. They can relate to your story and your journey because they're living it too. All right, one last question here, Donteacia, before we get into the quick rapid fire. Again, we're
Okay.
chatting here with Donteacia Seymore from the Creation Nation. I'll have a link below so you can launch your own product, build, fund, and launch your project and your product ASAP. So retail versus e-commerce. Does it depend
Oh.
on the product? Does it depend on your funding? How do you know where your product should live?
It depends on your appetite.
Ooh,
So retail is tough. Retail is not like they're not going to sell your product for you. So if you put your product in a retail store, first of all, to get in a retail store, you have to show some traction.
yeah.
So you have to show that people actually wanted the product. So either have like one of those incredible Kickstarter campaigns that did like 200 grand, right? Or you'd have to show that you've made money for the last like 2 years, 1 to 2 years selling your product. And then they have all these different programs where they just like look for local, entrepreneurs to support, and they'll put you in retail. But retail is an appetite because they don't actually sell your product. And if your product doesn't sell off the shelves, if you're not still promoting the product on the shelf, they're going to pull it.
Yeah.
And then they're not going to pay you for it either,
Mm.
right? And so you want to make it's a different type of beast. I think e-com is the way to go initially. I think you should be selling your product initially for two reasons. One, the profit margins is larger and allows you to reinvest into your products and position yourself for retail. So if you do have a not so great retail experience, you're not like completely dead in the water after that. Because we've seen a lot of companies go direct to retail and it completely killed their company,
Oh.
right? Because the cost to produce the number that they need, you have to pay that up front. They don't pay you for 90 days after they've received your product. So there's a 90-day gap where you're getting no money. So you have to have that capital and cash in the bank to keep your business running throughout that time. So it just depends on your appetite and your bank account when it comes to retail versus e-com. But I tell all inventors, anyone who has a product, you should be selling your first 1,000 products yourself, because you're going to learn everything about your products and everything about your customer in those first 1,000 units that you sell, to where you'll be able to answer any question that anyone has about your product.
Words of wisdom. Words of wisdom. It might be that you're in retail, but crawl, walk, run. That's, I think, the best way to really start a successful product.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. We're chatting with Donteacia Seymore, Creation Nation. Link below. Check her out. Let me ask you a couple quick rapid fires here, Donteacia. All right, you ready?
All
All right,
ready.
buckle. What is your favorite subscription? right now?
Oh, favorite subscription right now is probably everyone else's favorite subscription, Netflix.
Okay, okay.
So Netflix is my favorite subscription. It's the thing that I get. Oh, you know what? No, no, no. I take it back. I take it back. My favorite subscription is Audible.
Mm.
I listen to a lot of books, a lot of books on the go. I live in Florida, so on the beach. I'm going to the beach this weekend, so I listen to a lot of books, and so Audible is hands down probably my most used subscription.
Love it.
So I guess that makes it my favorite. But I do love me some Netflix. There are some Sundays where I do nothing but binge.
Is it-
But when it comes to like most used subscription, it's definitely Audible.
yeah, same as John Lee Dumas from Entrepreneurs on Fire, by the way.
Oh,
So
I didn't know
you're
that.
in good company there.
Yeah.
um, if you woke up in the morning and there was only one business task you could do, Donteacia, what would you do?
One business task that I could do for the whole day.
That's it. Just one task.
It would be communicate with the inventors in our community. Like they are doing such phenomenal, incredible things. And then sometimes there's just like human stuff that's happening, right? And they're feeling like a little dejected. I got an email this morning actually from one of them who lost a parent a couple of weeks ago, and they're like, I'm just not really sure how to move forward. And I lost my aunt to cancer last year, and they were like, how did you continue to move forward when it came to like you losing your aunt? Like, how did you do that? And I think like that human connection is the most important part of what I do, because like you said, inventions can be a very, very lonely road. And to know that you have a community of thousands of others there, and then you have me there as well, reminding people that the road may be difficult, but there is light on the other side of it. I think if there's only one thing that I could do, like in a business day, it would be communicate with the inventors in the community and make sure they're like encouraged and inspired and they're moving forward. And it's always good for me to go in there, because sometimes I won't be in there for a couple of days because our team is in there, and I'll come back and there'll be like 5 or 6 prototypes that they received. And I'm like excited and ecstatic. And so sometimes it's almost like an energy burst for me to go in there and to see all of the forward momentum.
And I think that's an indicator of a great engaged audience, a great
Yeah.
engaged community. That's
Yeah.
awesome. It uplifts everyone, including
Yeah.
yourself. Okay, final question here. If you had 10
Mhm.
seconds with yourself 10 years ago, what
Ooh.
would you say?
Don't sweat the small stuff. And everything is small.
I like that.
Like,
Donteacia said it, and I agree with it. That's beautiful. Thank you, Donteacia.
absolutely. It's my pleasure.